Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Eric.
And I'm Ruthann Ross. Welcome to Boxwood Hill in Nashville, Tennessee.
Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
Hi there, I'm Eric Ross. I'm an interior designer.
And I'm Ruthann Ross, and I am the business manager for Eric Ross Interiors.
And we are in Boxwood Hill, our home in Nashville, Tennessee. We are in a part of Nashville called Oak Hill, which is an incorporated little city. And we have 2.5 acres, which is unusual to be so close to downtown and yet feel like you're, on a piece of property. So it's actually very nice. It's very green. We did spend a lot of time working on the grounds. It was kind of wild when we bought the property. And so we did an expansion 3 years ago to the house, and we upgraded a lot of the grounds when we did that project. So this is our third summer for a lot of these things that we planted. I do like naming things just to provide more romance around it, and it's storytelling. It's a part of storytelling, which is what I do as a designer for clients anyway, is when we're creating their homes, there's a big component to storytelling when we're creating these rooms for them and learning about their families. So it just seems fitting, I think, to continue that on our own property.
The house was originally built in 1937, and
27.
27,
Yes,
excuse
sorry.
me. And it was a duplex at the time that it was built. So this house has had numerous iterations. The owner previous to us converted the home from a duplex into a single family home. And so they did a lot of renovations. We've done a lot of renovations. This house has just continued to morph over the years. But that was why when we first were struggling with how to give flow and have nice open spaces for entertaining large groups, we were restricted somewhat by the house structurally because there's 2 separate fireplaces and chimneys that go all the way through the attic. Well, that leaves you unable to move walls and things like that.
It becomes expensive.
Yes.
You're not unable, but
The Rosses are unable.
We do have a budget. Well, welcome to the living room. And this is the first room you enter when you come to Boxwood Hill. And we decorated it in all neutrals because at the time this house was decorated after the rest of the house was decorated because we did it on our second renovation. And so I didn't want to introduce more color. And to be honest with you, I had that skirted table made for a show house and I had it left. So that sort of dictated how we were going to decorate this room. So we had curtains made to match the skirted table, and we had the wallpaper installed to match the draper in the table. I do love to use things in mass, a certain print, and this is a printed iCat. So a true iCat is woven. This is printed both on the fabric and on the paper, obviously. So that's really was the impetus of the design choices in here. And this is the mantle we had redone to make it more historic looking. I didn't go overly decorative on it because this house always used the word noble to describe the house because it's not huge, it's not overly large, and we only have 9-foot ceilings downstairs, so I want to keep things in scale. I talk about this a lot with clients, the importance of size, and so I kept it pretty diminutive, and we have it full of antiques. So I can describe as much or as little as you want to know about. One thing about Ruthann and I both is we remember everything we ever bought, who from, where we were, what the
Well, you
occasion.
remember.
You
You
do.
remember
You do pretty
everything.
good.
I remember most things.
Yes.
One of our favorite things in this room, I will say we both agree on this one, is this gorgeous mirror that Eric found from one of our favorite dealers, Caroline Faison, in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I was hoping that it would end up at a client's home, but he loved it so much it ended up at our home.
Yes, a lot of things end up at our house, unfortunately. Well, fortunately for me, but unfortunately for our pocketbook. Well, I do mix high and low a lot. I have a hard time getting rid of things. So things that we bought when we were first married that weren't necessarily fine or expensive, I still use today and have a hard time parting with just because, well, we've already spent the money on and they do have some meaning. So this is actually an antique French bench that was stripped, and it had the original fabric on it, and then our dog destroyed it.
Yes, so we had to recover the seat cushion because the dog shredded what was there. But
He used to jump up in.
It was his favorite place to sit.
Yeah, and look, it used to be in front of where he could see outside. So we moved it in here eventually. That was in another house. And then, of course, a portrait of our daughter at 3.
And because I'm a proud mother, I have to share. We had this portrait done when she was 3 years old, and then a couple years ago when she graduated from high school, we had her senior portrait done by the same artist. And I think it turned out lovely and is something that we will always cherish.
So yeah, those are in here. The chairs are French bergère. I don't have all of my Louis memorized. They're all, Louis 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. There's basically the rule is as they get older, the Louis hit the 17 and 18, they become more elaborate. So this is probably more like Louis the 16th, Louis the 17th, maybe, if I'm guessing. And we bought these from a dealer that we buy a lot of things for clients, and he had these already recovered, and I knew I was going to do neutrals. These were in our bedroom at one point, and we moved them down here. So things can move around also, but this is a wonderful find that we love. This is an old fender that was reconditioned for the fireplace, and it's a screen actually, not a fender. And a fender has fabric on it, sorry. But this is old brass with a new iron screen, which we love. And then these andirons are also from Caroline Faison. So they're antique as well. This is actually a vintage Henredon chest. This is not an antique technically. This is probably from the 70s, but it's done in a Bombay French style that we bought at like a vintage shop years ago here in Nashville. When we were way younger. This is one of the pieces that I just can't get rid of. Also because of the sentimental, I remember when we bought it, but I also like the size of it because this is actually a main traffic thoroughfare, and so it's low and narrow, so it fits nicely here. I feel like if there were a taller chest, I don't want to hit my hips with it, so that's really one of the reasons we've kept it here. And then this is a king's chair we bought years ago, and I had recovered in a favorite fabric. This lived in our other house in the living room, and I love this fabric so much I couldn't tear myself away from it, so I decided to slip cover it.
In case
I want to go back to the other fabric. But this is an antique. This is a English armchair with French. This probably is more Italian, honestly. And I could go into the differences, but I won't bore you with all of that.
Please no.
This is an antique tilt-top table that at the top does tilt and has a little brass inlay in the top. And then these are paper-mache seashells that have little Japanese paper art. They're just really cool with gold leaf. So I like things, so we have a lot of collections. This stool, do you know about that? Do you remember we bought this in Charleston for a client, and they returned it. So it ended up in our house.
Yes.
This is Italian.
I had thought that was for a show house in Castro,
We bought it
North
for
Carolina.
a client in Charleston.
Okay.
When we went to Charleston, and this is all hand carved. So these are dogs, and it's just incredible with these lion's paw feet that all have. You can see if you close up. The hair is carved into it. It's pretty fantastic, really.
As we said earlier, one of the things we wanted to do was expand the entertaining space, and so 3 years ago, I think it was, we added the field room, which is right here adjacent off of our living room, to give us additional entertaining space.
This is the field room, and I call it the field room because you overlook a field. It's not any special, no one's come up with this term, we just made it up. And the walls, I wanted this to feel like an elevated fish camp, like from the 40s. It's kind of what I was going for with the knotty pine. I did want it to feel more masculine. I wanted it to have the feel of a library, but there are no bookshelves, so it's not really a library.
One of the things that Eric's favorite room in a place that we vacation frequently is Highlands, North Carolina, and his favorite room is the Hummingbird Lounge at Old Edwards. Now, this room doesn't look like that room, but this came out of his love of that space and how it felt. The old Persian rugs on the floor, the wood paneled walls, all of those things. And so that inspired him to want to build something that had that same feeling here at Boxwood Hill. And so he collaborated with a great friend of ours, James Dunn, who is the owner of Vintage Millworks. And James Dunn was able to sketch Eric's ideas and all of the elevations for over the fireplace mantle and the surround, the fireplace itself. James is incredibly skilled at hand drawing and sketching. And so the arched entry, all of the things, he was able to help Eric's vision for the room come to life.
I basically described to James what I want. I want an elliptical entry. I want a pediment over mantle. And then he'll say, like this.
And the windows, the oval windows were
our
something
dormers,
else that he
which
wanted.
I thought would be very easy to do, and they were not. So this room was something that we needed to expand our home for more entertaining space, and we also needed just more light, I think, too, in this side of the house. So we have windows everywhere. We have French doors on either end, so on a pretty day we can open the doors. The only negative is the traffic sound. So sometimes if it's not a weekend, then we don't really open the doors because you do get a lot of noise because we are on a main thoroughfare in town. So, but yeah, I wanted it to feel historic. We aligned the fireplaces. That's something I worked with the drafts person that helped me with the plans for this room, was I wanted the fireplaces to mirror each other. So I was very intentional about the layout, with the fireplaces, with the French doors, with the oval
dormers,
the oval dormers, thank you. So, and we do watch TV. We live in this room, so we have a television out of sight from when you come in, and it's on a tilt arm. So we do live in this part of the house most of the time.
So one of the things that this space allows us to do is to be able to set a long banquet table, fireplace to fireplace, the full length of the room, and be able to host our 20 some odd guests at a sit down dinner every fall. And so, yes, we are the crazy people that build an entire room so that we can have a party. I don't know that other people necessarily build a room just for that one reason.
It's multifunction. It's multifunction. So we do now. Most of this furniture is new. Honestly, it's upholstery. I usually specify new upholstery because it's just more comfortable for living. Because that's part of, again, going back to my ability for rooms to, I want them to be approachable, people to be comfortable in them. So the few antiques we have in this room is this wonderful, this is a Regency style cane back chair for a gentleman. It's very deep, but it's small. I do like to have a lot of seating in a room. That's something else I try to do with a lot of the rooms that I work on, is get a lot, like at least 8, 10 seats in a room if I can for adults. So we had this one recovered. Again, this is a great dealer that I work with a lot, that I found this with, but it's really a pretty piece, and our dog loves to sit in this chair. This is really his chair. And then with this is an antique tilt-top game table. And you can see it has a small checkerboard in the center. So it's just a cool piece. It's all inlaid. This is Italian. Again, just very charming, has a lot of visual interest.
But super practical, because on occasion Eric and I will both sit here and have our dinner. I sit here most nights and have my glass of wine, but occasionally I will clear it down more where he and I can both sit there for dinner, and it's nice just to have a different venue now that we're empty nesters and there's just two of us here at home.
Yeah. Originally, Ruthann wanted the television over the mantle, which no one really
I knew
likes
that would never fly.
But it would. This is one of the first things you see when you walk in the front door. And so I didn't want you to be able to see a television. So, we worked through all that and found a solution so I could have the sofa here and she could have her chair here and table so we could all access the television.
And I'll show you, the television is on a swing arm.
This is not new technology.
But it's discreet. So it's not the first thing you see when you walk in the room, but then you can see it from every space and every part of the room, wherever you're seated. These chairs swivel, and so people can turn around and be able to look at the television if you were sitting here.
But all of our friends do make fun of our lack of technology in the house.
And how small our television is.
Our televisions, I think they're plenty big, but they're not, I think that's 42 inches.
We are not the hosts of the big game parties.
No, we don't.
Let's put it that way.
I don't have a room for a big ugly television. Televisions are not pretty. Anyway. Well, I love blue and white. Well, blue and white we have always loved, and we have loved blue and white when we were married. When we were married, we registered for blue and white, which at the time, this was '95. No one was registering. Blue was out of style, so everybody was still doing hunter green and burgundy and all that. So we decided to do a lot of blue and white in our dishes and everything. So we've always loved blue and white, which blue and white now is super popular.
Hot.
Everybody does it now, which is I still love it regardless.
We were ahead of the trend. Just like with Downton Abbey, we were watching Downton Abbey before anybody else was too.
But these are just, decorative blue and white. They're mocks of Chinese import porcelain, which is a very traditional antique, but these are not antique, they're new.
They're new.
Made to look like reproduction. They are reproductions. But I bought them at different times. I think this one's like from Ralph Lauren.
Ralph Lauren home.
So they're not fine, but they're both ginger jar shapes. And I elevated this one on books to get the height up. So these are tricks that we use a lot of times when we're trying to use the things we already have. By stacking your lamp on books, it gets the scale better for the table.
One of my favorite hobbies, and I could spend a whole Saturday just styling and setting a table, is creating a tablescape for any kind of event. And so I have our table here set for brunch, and thankfully the peonies that bloom out by the front gate have decided to show off this week and created my centerpiece. Easy breezy. So this is just how we like to do it.
Yes, I don't like to have a table set all the time. We have it set a different way when we're not having a dinner party or a luncheon. So this was nice that she had this. And this time of year with the peonies blooming was perfect. They're absolutely knockout this year.
And you can see we do love blue and white. So as you come into our kitchen, the conservatory, you're going to see a lot more of our collections that have come over the years and things that we have come to love. This Italian sideboard that we bought from Caroline Faison, who we mentioned earlier, her daughter sold this to Eric back at the Antiques and Garden Show of Nashville a couple years ago. She was kind enough to personally hand deliver it to our house. But these lovely little Italian porcelain tulipiers are something that I love. Some beautiful blue and white plates that Eric, I think, purchased.
Those are from Kim,
my little sweet collection of KLM villages, the little houses that are actually liquor bottles for KLM Airlines, but I thought they were cute and just something fun to add to our collection.
The lamps are not special, they're new, but they are. I use these a lot. I bet you I buy these by the half dozen in pairs. But they are a nice small size, and they give you there's a sense of modernity to them because of how clean they are and because they're metal, but they don't take up a lot of space. So I like them and I use them a lot in various spaces. The mirror is spectacular. It's antique French. Yeah, it's antique French. I bought this from a dealer in Atlanta. And it's got the original glass, which you can see with the mercury. The silvering has peeled off, but it has hand-carved birds. All this is hand-carved. I mean, it's absolutely spectacular. The wall treatment people ask me about a lot on social media. This is actually fabric that we backed with acrylic so that it could be pasted to the wall. So I wanted this whole, I knew when we bought this house, I wanted the kitchen to be beige and cream plaid or check with window treatments. There's a lot of cabinetry in this kitchen, and the cabinetry was all pre-existing, and we painted it, changed all the hardware, and changed some of the molding. We simplified a lot of that. It had heavy carving. It was more French, and I wanted it more English, so we changed the crown molding treatments. We took the corbel. We did several things we took off just to clean it up. And so we added the window treatments, and I just wanted it to feel really special. It really, because it is open to the rest of the house, I didn't want it to feel so much like a kitchen, like utilitarian. I wanted it to be dressy.
There were things about the kitchen when we bought the house that I didn't care for, and the tile backsplash or the countertops.
Oh, here's where she explains why
But
she always apologizes for our backsplash.
I didn't love those things, but it seemed really senseless to tear them out, and they weren't so offensive that they had to go. And Eric always has a saying, if it's ugly, decorate it. He can make anything pretty by decorating. And so he really did in this space, bringing the buffalo check fabric throughout and giving us pretty curtains and using the upholstered walls. And I thought, who upholsters walls in a kitchen? You shouldn't upholster walls in a kitchen. Isn't that going to get stained? But thankfully, it's all in places where it's out of the way of any cooking spills or splatter, and dishwashing splatter. Everything there is tiled. And so I think it has really showcased what Eric is so good at, which is decorating. And people always tell us when they look at our kitchen, they're like, I never would have thought of putting blue and white lamps on your kitchen counter, but he did, and that is genius. So
well, I like that we leave them on, so they're kind of like a night light at nighttime. So if there's any reason we have to come down in the middle of the night to get a drink of water, or we're coming in late from an event, there's always a light on. The other thing I would want to mention of the breakfast room before we left, I thought we jumped into this kitchen without explaining. The centerpiece, the real showstopper, I think, in this room is this antique English lantern. And we found this from a dealer in Atlanta, and she had it electrified. It's an old gas lantern. And when we turned the corner, we were shopping, and I was like, that's the lantern for the breakfast room. So we bought it. And we did also add in this tray, the tray was just drywall, and we added Pecky cypress, which is a material that I love to use in a lot of my projects. I just love the distressed nature of it. We left it raw. So now it has more character. And then this is an antique, pine table. I do love pine. So we do have a few antiques in here, and I paired it with the white wicker just because I think it's charming, and these chairs are actually very comfortable. Yeah.
If you'll follow me, everyone always asks what my favorite room in the house is, and it's probably the smallest room in the house, but I would love to share with you my dish room, aka the party room. And it was the one thing that I wanted when I moved to Boxwood Hill, was a great space to store all of my things for hosting fabulous parties. And when ladies come over, they just come in here and ooh and ah and love it. And I did style it after some photographs that I have seen that Bunny Williams has the most fabulous pantry of anybody. And so I styled it that way, and I'd love for you to take a look. Wanted a great space to be able to store my linens, so I have my tablecloths hanging. I have storage for napkins, and they can stay folded. I have pumpkin soup bowls for the fall party that are here stored behind the curtains. And so silver trays, chafing dishes, all of those things, all of my cookbooks. And then you've got to have extra dish storage for your fall party dishes, your Christmas dishes, candles, the good old fashioned brunch dishes that your mother passes down to you. So it's just my favorite space because it's all right here and it's handy, and I'm not having to climb up into an attic to get it out when I want to use it. And Eric came up with a way to incorporate this fabric that's so happy and cute. And once again, we had it acrylic backed and applied it to the walls and to the ceiling and for the skirt, just to make this a special happy space. So when Eric and I were married, it was December 16th, 1995. And Gail Pittman had just come out with a brand new collection called Hallelujah. And it was, our first piece was a giant platter, which I've got stashed over here. And someone gave it to us as a wedding gift. And we both fell in love with it. And ever since, we have been collecting it and using it every Christmas. And I look forward to the opportunity to set my table with this. And I still, 28 years later, have not gotten tired of it. And of course, for the fall party, we use woodland spode. I try to choose the pieces that have the ducks and the dogs. Those are our favorite things. But I also like to have it in here kind of on display. And it's just special to be able to collect it. And when I couldn't afford to have enough pieces, Eric has a dear client who was always kind enough to loan me the extra pieces that I need if my party was bigger than what I had the dishes to accommodate. So a million years ago, Eric, for some reason, Gump's catalog was selling this pattern, which is called Amari Garden. I think this was one of our very first blue and white patterns. So I have the platters here, 2 of them here. And when we were building this room, I measured each and every one of my platters to see the height of them so that I could be sure that this bookcase would accommodate all the different sizes that I have and give me a place to put them. This beautiful Jaliska bowl that my mother gave us is my favorite salad bowl. And so it's very large, and being able to accommodate that is wonderful, but display it where you can see it all the time and it's pretty. And of course, Eric and I have collected the blue and white Jaliska. What's the name of the pattern?
Like
do you remember?
Garden Pavilion, maybe?
Garden Pavilion? Anyway, the blue and white Jaliska pattern we have enjoyed and used for years.
I love this kitchen. We get lots of compliments on it, but Ruthann does hate the backsplash, which she talked about earlier. But my favorite thing about it is the cross light. Anytime you can get, well, windows on 2 sides of a kitchen is very rare, honestly. Mm-hmm. And 3 sides is extremely rare. So we have windows on all 3 sides of the kitchen. This large one that looks out onto the property, which is beautiful with the trees this time of year, the summertime. It's magnificent. And then we have, Ruthann loves topiaries and plants and flowers, if you haven't picked up on that yet. So we always have some semblance of a garden like on this side with the light. So this is a little more filtered on this side, so there's always some transitioning plant story happening here that I have to try to come in and edit, but I've sort of given up.
In my defense, we are in the middle of shooting Eric's second book. And one of the things that comes along with photographing home after home after home is the need for an entire nursery full of plants and flowers and things to style those homes. And so in an effort to cut down on having to replace them every single time, I try to keep them alive and use them. And so each year, the Antique and Garden Show has a vendor that comes and brings the myrtle topiaries and the lavender topiaries and the rosemary. And so I buy them and then use them in photography of his projects. So it's doing double duty.
She just needs a reason to buy.
Yes. I feel justified in spending money on plants and flowers.
So this is the kitchen that we've it really works great for parties. Large island. We have 4 bar stools here, so it really works. She uses it a lot for cooking and for entertaining. So it is open to our den, which is, I briefly talked about the staircase that used to be here. So as we leave the kitchen, we can walk straight into the den.
And tell you a little bit about the renovation that had to happen in order to make this have a complete flow between the 2 rooms.
My personal style is Southern traditional. It's a lot of, that is, the way I would describe Southern traditional is by using a lot of antiques, a lot of heritage pieces like from family members, dressier probably, more elegant or formal. I do like my rooms to be livable. I think that's a hallmark of my design style is approachability. So we do use our furniture. Our dogs, like you can't maybe see, but one of our dogs is sitting next to me right now sleeping. So nothing's really off limits. So I like antiques because they do, again, tell a story. They hearken to a time past. They create romance in the home. Instantly in new homes, if you put something antique in them, it just feels more established and more grounded. So that's really just what I love. I like a lot of fabric and window treatments. Ruthann jokes I'm an 80-year-old woman inside, so I do like a lot of more fluff, than you might expect. But it is something that I've done for it's my 26th year decorating for a living. And my clients, people that I work for really search out and want to work with me because I do use a lot of fabrics and antiques. So it's sort of become a niche over the years, but it's true to what I love.
So, as Eric told you earlier, I was the one who would not buy this house or look at this house because the kitchen was separate from the den. And I wanted to be a part of the action on a weeknight or during a party. And so Eric convinced me to take out the staircase that separated the den here from the kitchen. And so where we are standing was actually a stairwell that came down from the second floor. It also had a doorway right here that went down into our basement, which is now Eric's studio for his interior design business. But because we had a front staircase to the upstairs and because we had another basement entry to the studio, we didn't feel like a second was necessary and that it would give the home a lot more flow. So we took out the staircase that actually was right here where we're standing.
Yes, well, and the irony was this is an exterior wall, so the staircase was supporting the wall.
Yes, so we had to put a large header
beam in there. So yeah, that really did open all this up for traffic flow.
I think one of the things too that everyone always comments about in this space is the Pecky cypress beams on the ceiling. Eric used those in the kitchen over the table to clad that whole area, but then we had these installed. So they really are decorative. They're not structural, but the Pecky cypress repetition there and in the bookcase over here, I think gives the room a lot more style and warmth and gives it that old charm that we were looking for. And people constantly want to know about the color green.
This was our den. Well, it still is our den, but this is where we lived for the first 3 or 4 years that we lived in this house.
Before the field room was built, we actually used this room a whole lot more. Now it's kind of a nice quiet place to get away and read or take a nap, but everybody always loves how cozy it is, and so in the wintertime it's nice to have this little small intimate space.
And of course, this dark green wall, really the inspiration was like Ralph Lauren, who is a style icon, and he's American, so that's good too. And the dark colors, the love of green, the love of wildlife that he uses a lot too. So I have these Audubon reproduction prints. So this is kind of really where the room started. I knew I wanted this dark green room. I knew I was going to be using the Pecky cypress. And so this fabric that I love, this is actually a polished chintz from Lee Joffa. It's a Oscar de la Renta, who I also love. And he did a home collection for them for fabrics, and it's just incredible, but it's very expensive. So I just put it on the valances and on this little slipper chair, which actually it's a full-size chair. Again, this goes back to how I love to make rooms usable and have more adults in them. So now we have a full seat here, plus the seat here. That's a vintage leather piece that I found at a local dealer. And then this is an antique French sofa that I found. It already had this wonderful velvet, this Italian velvet on it. So, and it's comfortable. I take naps on it.
I actually like a firm bed, and so it's perfect for me to take naps on.
Yes. So we've had these benches forever. These are not fine, but they're 2 benches put together for a cocktail table, and people always comment. I've done this for clients many times too, because this is actually not expensive, and you can pull them apart and use them, which we did for years at that party we were talking about.
Each side of the table, you know, if you need to have extra seating, just
Yes.
take the benches away and use them for the table. And nothing is more quintessential in Ralph Lauren home style than the leather. So you've got the dark wood, you've got the blue and white, you've got the Persian rugs,
And you got wool
and
plaid.
the wool plaid. I mean, Eric tried to, I think, do all of the things that make us both love that look and that style so much. Our friends went to New York to see Hamilton, and we were invited to go along, and Eric and I skipped Hamilton and we hung out at the Ralph Lauren Polo Bar and store all night long,
Yeah, it was so
instead
fun.
because it just feels so good to
Yeah,
us.
so this is one of our favorite rooms in the house, and we get probably the most comments on social media, questions regarding this room. And
Tell them the names.
You tell them, because I don't remember. I never
It's
remember the
Benjamin
names.
Moore Peel Green. People always want to know the name of the paint color.
Yes, because I always get confused between this and all of our interior doors are painted a different shade of green.
Chrome green.
From Benjamin Moore too. So people always ask about those two colors, and I can't ever keep them straight. So
One of our favorite antiques in the house is the grandfather clock.
this is one of our favorite pieces, and I feel like I need to tell a story since it was your birthday present. Ha ha ha.
I get the oddest things as birthday gifts.
So anyway, I had been stalking this clock forever, and it's a true English case clock. It has all the original workings, the original weight. It's all brass inside. If you look inside, I mean, you have to get a light in there, but it's a very fine clock, and clocks are expensive. So and this one wasn't at the time that bad. So I remember stalking it, and it's the scale is wonderful to find one this tall. It's like 101 inches, I think, and just the mahogany inlays or veneers
Flame,
are beautiful. Yeah, so it's just a special piece. And also, I love the toll painting on the face of it. We have spaniels, so there's a spaniel chasing the horseman. English clocks are the most desirable because they're the most dependable for keeping time. So
Eric had taken me time and time
To look at
again
this clock.
to look at a lot of different clocks. And after a few years, he wore me down, and I was like, you know what? That one really does have the prettiest face of any of them. I didn't want the roses and the cherubs and the very Victorian feeling face. I didn't want the phases of the moon that you often see. And so I conceded that, yes, this was the prettiest one. However, he decided, I forget what birthday, 35, I don't know. He said, well, I was thinking about buying you a new car, but instead I went and bought you a case clock. And I thought, I think I would have rather had
But
the car.
then I got there and it was sold. And then literally the antique dealer was like, well, I've taken a deposit from some lady who's waiting for her corn crop to come in. I'm not making this up.
He
This
is
what
not
happened.
making this up.
And I said, well, call her back. I basically said, what do I have to do to get this clock in my house today? And so he called the lady. She agreed that if I would pay for her 2 lamps and a chandelier that she also had on the order, that I could have the case clock. So we worked out a deal.
I bought somebody in Missouri 2 lamps and a chandelier just so I could get this clock.
Yes, but we do get a lot of compliments because it's a special piece too. So I'm glad we have it.
I'm actually really glad we have it.
This is
It's
made
actually
of Pecky cypress, and I just basically I had wonderful trim carpenters for this house on the first phase. Well, there was the same ones. I hired the same ones for the second phase, and this bookcase was here, but it was just white and standard trim. So I had them pull the face of it off, and they milled all this here on site. They made this little
routed
back band.
all the
They
edging.
routed all this edging and put the facade on. They made the doors. So they really did. I just basically gave them a picture of something that had this same silhouette, and they did it. It's pretty spectacular.
And the
then I painted
cypress-
the inside dark green, so it would just sort of recede.
The cypress gets the wormy holes from mold, I believe it is.
It's like a
that
bacteria that the wood gets.
grows
Yeah.
in the wood, and that's what creates sort of that gnarling and holy texture
Yeah.
that's in it.
So now we're going to take you to the conservatory, which is right off the kitchen. Well, in terms of renovations, yes, we have had 2 major projects in this house in the 7 years that we've lived here. When we were looking at a house to buy in Nashville, we had seen this house, and Ruthann immediately said no. She hated it because the kitchen was separate from the rest of the living spaces. And so we dropped it. We moved on. We didn't do anything at that time. But then right after that, I had a client, and she wanted to add a rear staircase in her house. So the builder, we were walking through with the builder, and I'm like, well, how big a deal is that? And he's like, oh, it's easy. It's really easy. Staircases aren't really supportive of anything other than themselves. They don't. I'm like, oh, well, that's fascinating. I just looked at a house, and there was a staircase separating the kitchen from the den. Would that be a big deal? And he's like, no problem at all. So I went back home and asked Ruthann if she would consider looking at this house if we opened up the kitchen to the den. So that way it was more open for entertaining. Because we entertain quite a bit. And so traffic flow and hosting and holding a lot of people in the house is important to us and important to her, since she's the one in the kitchen and she doesn't want to be separated from our guests. So we revisited and decided, it was something we wanted to do. So that was sort of the first phase of our remodeling project. That was the biggest part, probably from downstairs, was removing that staircase and opening up those two rooms. Then we added a bathroom and closet for our daughter, because all of there were only 2 bathrooms upstairs. All of the bedrooms in this house are upstairs, since it is a traditional house. And so we added a closet and bathroom for her over like a 1-story side entry that was already existing on the house. So that was the first major renovation we did. And then in 2020, that fall of 2020, we added our field room and a conservatory off the kitchen and an outdoor pavilion, and then landscaping. And that was a much bigger project and took 9 months, whereas the first project we did in 3 months. So, of course, a lot of that had to do with COVID too.
Yes.
And I've named it the Conservatory just because there's a lot of natural light and a lot of windows, but it's really a glorified hallway, which is right off of the kitchen and off of our bar area. So this was a necessity we had lived in this house for 4 years, and we had a tiny little impingement that would keep people from traffic, being able to go through from room to room, and it really was difficult for big parties. So this used to be an exterior, a pair of patio doors, and then there was one on the kitchen side as well, and this was a deck before. So we were able to close this in and we actually below us have a potting shed, so it's for plant storage and pots and pans.
Another of my favorite rooms.
Flower pots, excuse me. And so we moved the exterior door to the new exterior.
That was right here, the set of 3 doors that was across here.
To the exterior.
We moved out.
And then I don't love painted brick as a rule, but I felt like...
Oh, I do.
I really wanted to stucco this, but that was another expense, so we didn't do it.
I forgot that was something that we argued over.
Yes. So I picked a different shade of white than the trim, but this is a nice room because it does allow us. We set this up as a bar.
Yeah, we've got a lot on here right now, but this is all can be a dessert buffet. This can be a bar. This sideboard is very functional, and
I don't drink dark liquor, but we keep all of our dark liquor in here for when friends come by. So this actually we do set up sort of as a bar sometimes, or as a dessert bar for entertaining as well. But this really
gives people a place to mill about after they've fixed a cocktail or they've gotten up from the kitchen table.
Yes.
So, yes, it's a glorified hallway, but if we want to, for larger parties, we put a table here, and it gives us another place for people to sit down to dine. So,
and
it's very versatile.
We have a lot of old pieces in here. These are some old French, I call these like king's chairs, and I found them already upholstered in this. This is from a dealer that I buy from in Blowing Rock, North Carolina. This is from a dealer out of Raleigh, North Carolina, who's actually showing at that same shop in Blowing Rock, but I buy a lot from them. And I like this because it's Empire style. I've never seen this before. You see this a lot in mahogany with this this applied column. It looks just like it's a column. It's a shaft of a column here with a little detail at the top and the bottom. This is actually made out of pine. It's been stripped. I love pine because of how sort of simple and approachable it is. So it doesn't feel fussy, but I think it's a really cool piece. You can see like the door, like the base of that column is attached to the door. It's just a cool piece. But this is special to me. This is a client gave this to me as a thank you after a project, a Trumeau mirror. And I love it has a horseman, his dogs.
He's beating
his
his dog
for misbehaving, I guess.
Terrible.
And then we have an assortment of blue and white. And this is a real mixed collection. Some of these are fine. I think most of them are fine, actually.
Some are not.
No, I think they all are.
Are they?
Yeah. These are not. These are reproduction. But I mix a lot. I mix a lot of things in. So these are cool chairs. These are kind of Victorian for me, but they have mother and pearl inlay in them. And you can see some of this inlay. This is a more distressed chair. There's a nicer mate to it across the doorway. But they have cane seat that's been recaned. And then I love leopard animal print. I put it on everything. And I like it when it's colored. That's just a hallmark of my work. So anyway, this is just a pretty hallway. We call it the Conservatory. It's a beadboard ceiling, and so I painted it a robin's egg blue because in the South, historic homes, they paint their ceilings blue. And I wanted to
ask you what color.
I wanted to feel like it was a converted porch.
And it was. Did you mention
it just
the
didn't
lanterns?
have a roof before. Well, they're not old.
They're not old, but they had been on the house when this was a porch, and
so
they're
we kept
good
the
copper lanterns, and so we left them here during the renovation because we liked them for extra light.
Yes. This is a closeout from Visual Comfort from Suzanne Kassler. She did a collection.
It's a sweet size.
It is.
Okay, so this is Eric Ross Interiors where the magic happens, but we are in the terrace level, as some people romantically like to call it, of our home here at Boxwood Hill, aka a basement. And I despise basements, but when we looked at this house, Eric was convinced that this was the space that he wanted for his business. It does have a lot of natural light that comes in from the walkout terrace doors, and so he felt strongly about that. And it has a lot of extra storage space for the business, and we can let you walk through and see that here in a minute. But we completely outfitted the space to suit his business and give us built-ins for all of our sampling throughout the whole space, and it has been a real blessing. We love to work from home. It has been something that we have done now together for 15 years. It gave us a great way to raise our daughter and not have to be at a shop or at a studio, and just provides a wonderful quality of life. Our lovely assistant has vanished when we came down to give the tour, but
I would just interject.
I've always wanted to work and live in the same space because I think it helps clients visualize and the romance of home. And what I'm selling is a lifestyle to people. I'm not just selling furniture and draperies, but I'm selling them how to live. So for them to be able to come to my home, it's much more intimate, it's much more inviting and special than a studio or an office. And so it's something we've always worked from home. My studio has always been in our home, no matter where we've lived in the past 15 years since I started Eric Ross Interiors. And it really does help to be able to walk them upstairs and say, well, I have 10-foot ceilings and here's how the chandelier looks, or here's the type of drapery treatment I want to do, and I can show them the quality of it. It's just
right. This is the upholstery line that, is my favorite.
Yes.
And here, sit on this sofa or sit on this chair.
Correct. And it shows them too what my expectation is. Like if it's a new client, like, oh, everyone doesn't live like this. Like this is what we're doing in your house. We're going to pay per every square inch. We're going to have draperies everywhere. We're going to have antique rugs. We're going to have comfortable furniture. So it sets
an expectation with the client and sort of helps to educate them. So I think it's very intentional. Yes, it's benefits that our daughter didn't have to go to daycare, but that really wasn't the primary objective. If I'm being honest, it's been very effective in our business.
Right.
The basement was part of our renovation. And basically in the basement, all we did was we took out all the flooring.
Shag
painted-
carpet.
Yeah, painted all the walls. Again, we went with everything white down here, just again as a neutral ground for decorating other houses. Again, functionality and flexibility. This is what I call my work table, which is skirted, so it has all of my projects in bins and baskets underneath.
Yep.
So you can see, some projects laid out.
No.
And then it's also on rollers. So if we're gonna, like when we're looking at Oriental rugs and they're big, I can roll this out of the way. We can move this and set it over by the wall, and I can lay out carpets down here. And so it's really been an effective use of space to have
Maybe we should
just to have all of this. And then years ago when I started, again, this has been my 26th year decorating for a living, and we would do, most of it was books. We had book plans with a lot of these vendors, and that's how they sampled. But as the industry has changed a bit, and this is a very expensive way to sample for the vendors, a lot of them have moved to flat folds. So now we have kind of adjusted and now have baskets, and these are arranged by color, by type of fabric. This is large print greens, large prints warm, large prints cool. I do tend to decorate in certain color schemes, so I only pull fabrics that I'm going to use and sell to clients. Like I would never have a bin of purple because purple is very polarizing. So there's just, I don't have a lot of gray. I just call it cool because I don't do a lot of gray. So that's how the studio, these are all hanging samples. I get into how we organize this, but my assistant's very organized. So she does keep us ship-shape. This is our conference side, which is where I meet with clients typically. I don't really work with clients in the studio. They don't come in and go through fabrics. That's not part of my process. I sort of pre-select for them, and then I can lay out here or take them to their home. Really, most of my clients I meet with in their homes, but
when they do come for a big presentation.
Right, or big presentation, or if they're building and there's not a place to meet, in an existing home, then we'll meet here in the studio. As you can see, the light is just beautiful. It's really why I bought the house. I loved the studio space and the light because I knew it would be easy to create in here, because in our other home, I literally had a patch of carpet that had good light, and that was it. So I've gotten spoiled with all of this.
Well, and the great part is that it does have a separate entrance off of the terrace, and so we're able to have reps and clients come in through these doors, and it doesn't necessarily interrupt our personal life and gives them their own taste and feel of Eric Ross Interiors and Boxwood Hill as they're coming in. And we have, during our second renovation, added the terrace space and worked really hard to try to make that charming and beautiful and give us some place outside that we can enjoy.
Which we can share with you right now.
So this is the terrace of our home and the space where any of our clients, sales reps, guests of Eric Ross Interiors would come in. And we wanted to be able to showcase outdoor living as well, because we do sell outdoor furniture, and just wanted to be able to have a good entertaining space for ourselves, but also showcase what Eric can do for an outdoor space, and that he is involved in all aspects of the design of the home. So this cute little space that's tucked away conveniently, as Eric mentioned while we were in the conservatory, is what we refer to as the potting shed. I don't really work so much in the garden per se, but love to pot plants and flowers and that kind of thing. And this gives me a great place to store those things, as well as all of our outdoor cushions that you have to put away in the winter time, and just the clutter and the mess and the dirt that you don't necessarily want to have a shed per se, but this is a cute and happy space that I enjoy using a lot, and is also really practical and functional way of utilizing what was underneath the conservatory.
Yes, and I'll also say This is our third attempt to grow something in these pots.
So there are certain aspects that we fail miserably in our gardening.
Try again. So we've had Confederate jasmine, we've had
Clematis.
autumn glory. It's supposed to be.
So now we're going to
evergreen.
try
Now we're gonna
roses.
So if you give us any pointers. Now we're in the pavilion, which is a roofed structure that has, Ruthann wanted an outdoor fireplace because she loves an outdoor fire when it's cold outside, obviously.
Yes.
But we also wanted a place if it were to rain or if we wanted to have a dinner outside and had a roof. So we decided to add this, but we both argued back and forth about it because I did not want a roof on this structure because I didn't want to see it from the second floor, which is where our main living areas are. So we ended up compromising by doing the lowest pitch roof we could do, and it's a hip roof, so it's not as much square footage, whereas a gable roof would be. So anyway, it's
I love it, and I always love a fire, and so being able to be out here in the wintertime and entertain friends and enjoy the fireplace, having a place to grill that's pretty and be able to relax and see the lawn and the yard. We were able to host our daughter's graduation party from high school out here and had tables set up in the lawn and had a beautiful picnic.
Yes. And
Jumpy Castle out in the
For
lawn.
adults.
So, we have grand, visions and think, oh, maybe someday we'll have a wedding tent out there. So it just has been a good.
The stress of an outdoor wedding. So
He says no outdoor wedding, but I think this is the perfect place to have a bar and dancing. So
This is a quintessential design that I do on every outdoor fireplace for a project is a lantern with the yoke and the hook underneath in gas, because I hate mantles outside because they get filthy dirty and people put things on them and then those things get filthy dirty. So the only thing that gets dirty here is the glass.
And he chose the one lantern in the house that I did not Windex.
But I think it's super effective as a decorative item because it's not anything you have to clean. Because if people expect your outdoor lights to kind of, have patina.
Yes, that one definitely does.
I would say home to me is family, home is hospitality, and when I invite somebody to dine at my kitchen table, I am trying to show them that I love them. I'm trying to tell them that I care about them. And so Eric and I invite people into our home regularly because we want to show the people that we love and care about an expression of that caring. A gift is how I view it. And I don't think people do that often enough. And I think that one of our core beliefs for both of us is that home should be a haven and make people feel safe. And so I think that even though Eric is a designer and our home is beautiful, everyone that comes in says, oh, your home is so lovely. Oh, it's so beautiful. But I also hear people say, it's so warm, it's so welcoming.
home to me really just means safety, a safe place to rest. The world is so noisy and busy and everything's changing all the time. It's sort of a place of certainty, and so that's really probably my affinity for antiques and for historic things, is that it's like time tested. And so, you know, one thing that I really look for in home is everything to have a place, and every place has a thing, or I don't, everything has a place. I like order, and I want things to feel like they belong there. Like, oh, of course you would have these chairs here. They're perfect. And so really that's really my sense of safety and comfort's a big thing, and welcome. I think as a Southerner, we immediately want guests who come in to feel like it's easy to be there and that we're glad to have it, that they're not in the way and they're not worried about wiping their feet on one of our carpets or anything like that. So, you know, that's really the crux of home to me, is welcome and safety and comfort.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.